Hare Krishna. My name is Aruddha Devi Dasi, and I'm a mother of two boys whom I homeschooled. So today I would like to share some experiences, some of my realizations regarding teaching and studying Srimad Bhagavatam with our children. So I'd like to begin with a quote by Srila Prabhupada, which I really like. If we are able to make a whole generation of our children into fine Krishna conscious preachers, that will be the glory of our movement and the glory of your country as well. But if we neglect somehow or other, and if we lose even one Vaishnava, that is a very great loss. So Srila Prabhupada, he stressed three things: book distribution, deity worship, and Gurukula. So Prabhupada's idea for the education of our children was to make them well-rounded devotees who are expert in Shastra, eager to give Krishna to others, and steady in their own personal practice. Since Krishna, he is the source of all knowledge, if you understand and love him, then all sorts of knowledge will follow. Because why? Because everything material and spiritual comes from Krishna. And that is why Srila Prabhupada emphasized spirituality as the goal of education. He knew that Srimad Bhagavatam has everything in it needed to understand both the material and spiritual worlds. So Srila Prabhupada was envisioned our children not only to have an academic education, but to develop godly character as well. And in order to have godly character, one must have God in the center of our life. Otherwise, there's no impetus to check one's action. Krishna has so many wonderful qualities, such as kindness, wisdom, peacefulness, and forgiveness. And a godly person can also develop these same qualities. So my journey in education started out with homeschooling my two sons, Radhika Raman and Gopal Hari, after I became disappointed with the public school system that they attended for the first 3 years. The central part of our curriculum at home was a study of Srimad Bhagavatam. After several years of homeschooling based on Srila Prabhupada's books, we noticed that the process was working, and the children were doing well, both academically and spiritually. At that time, homeschooling was a fairly new concept within ISKCON at that time. And so devotees, they invited me to do homeschooling seminars in which I gave principles and techniques with emphasis on the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, after guiding homeschooling parents for many years, I wanted to reach out to Gurukula teachers, as well as parents who were sending their children to public school. So I adjusted the focus of my seminars from homeschooling to Krishna conscious parenting in general. The key concepts were still the same: the need for a good home environment, spiritual and academic success through the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and solidifying children's faith by involving them in preaching programs. This is based on ISKCON motto, purity is the force, books are the basis, and preaching is the essence. So but today I will only speak on the second one, which is spiritual and academic success through the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now I'm going to read you the three quotes by, that Prabhupada gives, explaining the importance of studying Srimad Bhagavatam with our children. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he emphasized that children study Sanskrit and English. Why? Because in future they could read his books. Prabhupada said very proudly, that will make them MA, PhD. Why? Because the knowledge in Srila Prabhupada's books is advanced, very advanced. Children can be well educated, happy, satisfied, and even go back home, back to Godhead by reading them. So these quotes as following, please hear carefully. Our students specifically, they should take care of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have therefore prescribed in our school dallas. And from the very beginning, if they begin education with Bhagavad Gita and then come to Srimad Bhagavatam and read the whole literature, then they will be more than MA, PhD. Even astronomy, astrology, politics, sociology, atomic theory, everything is there. Therefore, if we study Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, then you get all knowledge completely. Throughout the whole world, whatever knowledge is there is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one simply reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, his education is the topmost. If one studies Srimad Bhagavatam, he is well versed in every subject matter. So it's easier to study Bhagavatam with our children because Bhagavatam contains stories. It contains all the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. So there's no loss in focusing on the Bhagavatam. And we've seen that even a 6-year-old can learn to read directly from Srila Prabhupada's books. But because of the book's potency, the child's language skills quickly increase. Once children have a good command over language, they can master any subject. And also another benefit of studying Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada emphasized is that it would give them a head start on all other subjects, especially when they have to read, study other subjects in schools, right? So it gives a nice foundation of Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, the child gets a Vedic perspective before he studies other outside books. So in our spiritual benefits, there's some very wonderful spiritual benefits from reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And especially Prabhupada emphasized the importance of giving our children good role models. Because especially in the early part of their life, when they develop their first impressions, good role models are very, very necessary. Sometimes we think actually that a person can be a good role model, even if he's not a devotee of Lord. But no matter how much goodness an individual has, we still know that the mode of goodness is never found in its pure form in this world. It's always mixed with passion and ignorance. Even if we find someone who is in the mode of goodness and seemingly worthy of emulation, it's only a matter of time before the modes of passion and ignorance appear and sully his or her purity. Maintain this mode of goodness in its pure form is to rise to the transcendental level, the level of Shuddha Sattva. And this is why ultimately we have to look to Krishna conscious role models. And we know that Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Krishna and his pure devotees. And that's why this is the wonderful thing about Krishna conscious education. At a young age, children accept the role models, pretty much anyone placed in front of them. And if these role models are appropriate, then the first few years of a child's life can set a proper direction for his or her entire lifetime. I remember in Boise, as the children were growing up, there was this famous person, an athlete, and he was very famous, not only because he was very good at what he was doing, at playing golf, but he was also, praised for his, for his clean and pure habits. He was a good family man. He was completely dedicated to his game. And all the children, they were emulating such a personality. And to the extent that even the advertising companies, they hired him for endorsements. And then in a few years, there was a scandal that he was having extramarital affairs with someone. And all the image crumbled around him. His wife and family and fans were all devastated. And a lot of the companies that hired him let him go, because he didn't present the role model that they were looking for. But what was being overlooked in the media is the impact that this has had on children. because there was a whole generation of children who grew up looking up to this person as a role model for focus, dedication, purity, and uprightness, moral uprightness. And it was gone. It was finished. So children, they see now that people that they admire and want to follow, they are not worthy of their, of their emulation. And if they continue to emulate such people, then this can have a very detrimental impact on them and on society. Now, another interesting thing is that these early years are so important in terms of, shaping their character. They're so important in shaping their character that that even if the children go distracted, later on in their life, the impressions that have helped them in childhood will never be completely lost. It will only be a matter of time before the education shows its true power. So, I was thinking that how these role models in the Bhagavatam, how they are giving character training to our children is so very important, isn't it? Like children learn qualities like, they learn qualities like humility and gratefulness, all from Srimad Bhagavatam. We can because these are not just moral stories. The Bhagavatam stories, it's more than that. It's more ethical stories. It goes very deep. For example, if you tell a child to obey or to honor their father and mother, they can't understand that. But if you do that from a story from the Srimad Bhagavatam, then it has a very great impact. For example, the quality of humility in Parikshit Maharaj. It was really it's very impactful, right? That even though he had the power to reverse the curse, yet because he was so humble, he accepted that curse, which was to die in 7 days, because he saw it as the will of the Lord. He could see it as he didn't want to go against the current of time, which was that Kali Yuga had to begin and Srimad Bhagavatam had to take its advent. And because he saw that as the plan of the Lord, he accepted it in such a humble way, even though he had the power to reverse the curse. Now Parikshit Maharaj was not only just a very humble person or a humble king, he was more than that. He showed qualities of great leadership and strength as a leader, the way he dealt with Kali, in being very strong with Kali. But at the same time, his quality of tolerance and forgiveness when Kali he decided to surrender and wanted shelter in his kingdom. So in one person, we see so many wonderful qualities. How are the children going to learn these? How will they imbibe these qualities without hearing stories like that? The point that we have to realize is that nowadays the educational system is looking for people with critical thinking and reasoning skills, people who can be creative and innovative in finding solutions to problems. There may have been a time when the education was just a matter of memorizing formulas and repeating them back on examinations, but those days are long gone. Both job market and the educational system are looking for people who can take a problem, examine it critically, find a creative solution, and then implement that solution. Those critical thinking and reasoning skills are found so clearly and so powerfully in Srila Prabhupada's books, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. Another thing to realize is that the concepts provided in the Gita or the Bhagavatam are not dogmatic. There is no, you do this, you do this, you do this, and now be silent and don't ask questions. It's not like that. The Bhagavatam is full of questions, answers, and debates. Is God partial to his devotees or impartial to everyone? If God is all kind, why is there so much suffering in the world? Questions like these fill up the history of philosophy, both in the West and in India, and they're all addressed in the Bhagavatam. What's interesting is that if somebody wants to become a lawyer, one of its best preparations is a degree in philosophy. Law schools appreciate such students not because of the philosophical content, but because of the understanding and critical thinking required to reach philosophical solutions. Now, what does this thinking and asking questions that does to the mind? What it does is that a child can then take a problem, a difficult problem, and separate and distinguish it and categorize and organize it. And that comes from the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it becomes like a plus point for a child who's going to law school. Of course, we know the ultimate goal of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, studying Srila Prabhupada's books, is not what we gain, that we gain some material qualifications, but that we advance spiritually. But the point of my remark is that we should have faith that when we pursue what Srila Prabhupada wanted, when we pursue our spiritual direction in life, then the material will automatically be taken care of with no lacking. It is impossible for a devotee, for anyone to be a devotee of Krishna and remain ignorant, because the material aspect of life is a servant of the spiritual aspect. All material qualifications stand ready with folded hands, waiting for the devotee to accept that, if one can pursue with faith what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Then another point is that one doesn't need to skip any part of the Bhagavatam. Even adult topics or parts that seem violent, but rather it gives them an understanding of the mundane world through a spiritual perspective. After all, our children are exposed to such things every day in the world, so it is so much better that they learn about reality through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Everything in the Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental and therefore can never be harmful. Even topics such as death, description of hells, and the fateful future of a Brahmedi life can be discussed in a way that gives the truth, yet makes them reflective, compassionate, and hopeful for their own future. They are also trained to distinguish between blind following and proper reason based on Shastra. Now, how can we give both fear of material life and fearlessness? Srimad Bhagavatam teaches by contrast. For example, Hiranyakashipu was the biggest terrorist in history, but Prahlad is the greatest devotee. We can live in this world of self-serving leaders while knowing the example of Prahlad Maharaj. As the children discuss the scriptures among elders and friends, they understand the present condition of society and the struggles of living together within a family, a society of devotees, and the world at large. They can learn how to apply the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam in every situation according to time, place, and circumstance. At present, I'm teaching Srimad Bhagavatam to many children online, mostly between the ages of 10 and 16, in groups of 10 or 12. Most of these children have been hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from me for the last 5 years. I see the change in their consciousness, how their faith in Krishna and their attachment to Bhagavatam is becoming stronger and deeper. I've had actually a lot of nice letters. I thought I'd read you one. One parent writes, "My daughter is always looking forward to classes, and sometimes if we are out and she gets late in joining, she starts getting restless because she understands she's missing something very precious." Another parent wrote, "The study of Srimad Bhagavatam and the principles of Krishna consciousness have helped me and my daughter in understanding the deeper meaning of life and relishing the taste of this sublime literature." And this is coming with the study of Bhagavatam only once a week. Imagine it, the results if we study Srimad Bhagavatam with our children every day or several times a week. I found satisfaction in doing Bhagavatam with, in encouraging parents to study Bhagavatam with their children. The response has been enthusiastic and the results life-changing for many. Many years ago, Bhaktivedanta Gurukula in Vrindavan, as well as the Mayapur International School, introduced the study of Bhagavatam as part of their daily curriculum for primary and middle school children. And they used the resources provided in Srimad Bhagavatam, a comprehensive guide for young readers that we are trying to publish. These are resources from every chapter of the Bhagavatam. Now, these series of guidebooks is the result of a multi-year effort by parents from around the world who are working together to create study resources for every chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The parents come from a variety of backgrounds, including teachers, counselors, and home mothers. And what is the result? We have done an innovative collection of material on every chapter of Cantos 1 through 7. Now, in the last few years, my effort has been to build confidence in parents and teachers, instilling in them the imperative, urgent need to study Shastra with their children before they are grown up and their consciousness has been maturely conditioned. Actually, there's nothing more joyful than to see the amazement of how deep Srimad Bhagavatam can take us through the insightful stories and philosophy. Now, the challenge is to take a discussion from asking what happened to why it happened. So that I'm going to tell you in the methodology for teaching Srimad Bhagavatam. So how do we study Srimad Bhagavatam with our children? This is mainly through interactive reading and discussion, the most important element of the process. What do? We sit in a circle and take turns reading only translations, pausing frequently for discussion. For children who cannot read, they can listen as their parents read and paraphrase the translations. Now, this method has been followed for thousands of years by the great sages of India, Vedic India, as we see in the Bhagavatam itself. Now, what is discussion? Discussion is an important part of reading. For children, it breaks up the monotony of reading and can add both interest and challenge. By using Srimad Bhagavatam as a basic text, children can learn all aspects of language arts, composition, comprehension, and vocabulary, along with critical thinking and analytical reasoning. Now, children often drive the discussion by asking questions, raising doubts, or making observations about what they read. By having the opportunity to express themselves, children will understand the material better, gain self-confidence, and learn communication skills. Parents can pick up on their reading cues and ask questions of their own to encourage deeper understanding. Parents can also present their own realizations, play devil's advocate, and relate the stories to practical life, thus making the Bhagavatam study a dynamic learning experience. Now, reading and discussion that we do while we're doing Bhagavatam lead to good speaking, debate, and logical thinking. Now, the nature of Bhagavatam is such that it encourages a person to ask questions, think critically, and work creatively, because the Bhagavatam is full of analogies, metaphors, and figurative speech. For example, the analogy of the car and the driver that Srila Prabhupada uses to describe the difference between the body and the soul is practical and simple, but it allows a child to appreciate a foundational principle of Krishna consciousness. Some analogies may be difficult for a 4 or 5-year-old, but as she or he grows older, these analogies will become the basis for strong reasoning skills. Now, another suggestion is that before reading a chapter, translations, of course, with their children, parents should read the chapter on their own and go through the discussion, higher thinking questions provided in the book. in the guidebook. Now, the discussion questions are meant to give parents some idea of how to inspire discussions as they read with their children. Please remember, however, that the discussion questions are only for the purpose of stimulating ideas, not to create a highly structured oral exam atmosphere while reading. The key is to keep the discussion dynamic and student-driven, using the sample questions when needed and adapting, rephrasing them as appropriate for the age and personality of the child. In the course of a vibrant discussion, you and your child will, no doubt, come up with questions and topics that were not mentioned in the book. Here are some suggestions for raising interesting and thought-provoking questions. Whenever possible, ask why and how questions rather than what factual questions, thus encouraging your child to think and reason. Don't be afraid to ask open-ended questions that do not have a clear-cut answer. These questions often lead to beneficial discussions. Analogies are good opportunities to connect the Srimad Bhagavatam to your child's experience and imagination. The Srimad Bhagavatam is full of vivid analogies and metaphors, so utilize these for your discussions. Frequently encourage your child to make comments and raise questions. When your child raises a question for which you don't know the answer, don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to say so. Discuss his or her questions thoroughly. Read through purpose to find guidance, and you will see many fresh realizations arise. Next one is try to relate the story to daily life. For example, why did Parikshit Maharaj not retaliate against the boy's curse? What can we learn from Parikshit Maharaj's behavior? However, don't put your child on the spot by pointing fingers. How should you have behaved with your friend Johnny the other day? Such finger pointing destroys the discussion and intimidates the child. Next point, draw connections with other stories from the scriptures that your child may already know. This boy, for example, Shringi showed anger in an inappropriate way. But when is it okay to show anger? Can you give an example? Have a realization session at the end of the chapter where your child can tell you what they learned from the chapter. And you can tell your child what you learned. Or bring the family together and ask your child to give a short class on the chapter, even if you have not read. Anyway, the point here is that from what I experienced teaching Bhagavatam to my children is that what was amazing for me, which I later, many, many years later, I realized, is that just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam with them for 2 hours every day, the boys' language and comprehension skills became very strong. I would give them occasional writing assignments, but we mostly read and discussed. Not only were they reading at the college level, within 5 years of me introducing this program, but their understanding of fine philosophical points was amazing. They had learned reasoning, logic, debating skills, and how to communicate effectively. Later, when they began to attend college, they had little problem learning American history, geography, science, English literature, anthropology, and sociology for the first time. I was surprised myself how well they did. They scored high in every subject, and the teachers said their understanding and maturity was better than those of their classmates. We have had, the same experience actually with other children who have taken this method, this studying Bhagavatam with their children. And sometimes we think, is this all practical? Just to study only through Prabhupada's books? Won't education through the scriptures do nothing but prepare them for a life of preaching and other devotional activities? Can the children gain enough knowledge and learn enough skills to live in the world, hold a job, get married, and carry the social and financial obligations that go with the Grihastha ashram? In our case, we found that the scriptures equipped us to do all of the above because they teach not only the purpose of human life, but the nature of material world and how to live in it while one is preparing to go back to Godhead. The knowledge in the scriptures is complete. Nothing is lacking materially or spiritually. Because by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, one can understand every psychological situation in the world. So we'll move to our next slide, where we're going to talk about how to teach Bhagavatam to different age groups. The first, how to teach to toddlers. Now, toddlers, obviously, they're very small. Because they cannot read, but yet there's a way we can show them pictures from the Srimad Bhagavatam and try to tell them stories in our own words. And they really like it. Actually, children love repetition. You can show them the pictures again and again and again. In our days, we had the set of Srimad Bhagavatam with many more volumes that we see today. So there were plenty of pictures, and we would go over it again and again and again. So next, we're going to talk about how to teach Bhagavatam with 4 to 7 year olds. Now, this age, they may just be starting how to read, right? So, but yet it's amazing how much they can pick up. It's quite amazing how much they can pick up. And I have had wonderful experience with children that age, where they've actually imbibe the deeper aspects of character formation, and also other things that one needs to learn in life. For example, I was teaching my grandson from Srimad Bhagavatam, and I remember that we were doing the story from Dhruva, the Dhruva story, and we came to the part where Dhruva was going back to Godhead, and the airplane had come to get him. And there was a beautiful description of the airplane and Nanda and Sunanda. And when my grandson, he saw that, he heard that, he wanted to actually go in that plane back to Godhead. And he kept asking me and telling me that, Mata, I want to go back in that plane, Grandma. And so I said, okay, I thought he's a child and he's just very inspired. And then I continued to teach him. And then he said, no, but I want to go on that airplane right now. And then I said, okay, if you want to go on the airplane, you'll have to wait, because your parents will not be able to go with you. And he thought about it for a little while. And he said, okay, I think I'm going to wait, because I don't want to make the same mistake that Ajamal did. Now, the story about Ajamal, we did quite some time ago. And as you may recollect, when Ajamal came to his senses and he reformed his life, he was really regretting how he neglected his old parents. And so he remembered that. And so this quality of being, grateful, and also remembering how he must not, he has to grow up and take care of his parents, resonated very deep in his heart. And I was really surprised, really shocked how he had imbibed that. But this experience that I had with my grandson, I've had with many other children. One time with another child, I was teaching the part of the Vamandev story, when he took his 3 steps, and it was very big steps, right? So in the first step, he covered all the universes. And it's described that Bali Maharaj, when he saw that, he saw himself also, under this step, Vamandev step. So he, and so he was, and of course, immediately that child said that, oh, this is just like Mother Yashoda, how she saw herself in Krishna's mouth. When Krishna opened his mouth and he was being naughty and he had eaten dirt, Mother Yashoda had asked him to open his mouth. And Mother Yashoda saw herself also in the mouth. The same way, like, Bali Maharaj saw himself under Krishna's step. So in this way, that small child who was only like 5 years old, he was making comparisons. So you can see that even at this age group, children make comparisons. They are very sharp. They're very sharp. And the other story that I was doing with another child is about the impact it had on him, how a demon like Vritasura, how he was such a great devotee. And in this way, the children learn not to judge people by their bodily conditions, and how anybody with any type of family background or body can be a great devotee of the Lord, such as Vritasura and Bali Maharaj. So in this way, children learn a lot even at that age, even though we are thinking they're so little, but yet they pick up a lot. So now the last one is the example of the discussion. This is 8 to 15-year-olds. It's the same process, except we just go deeper and deeper and deeper. We and naturally our life's experience is also there, as well as the realizations class. During the time of realization, these children who are from this age group, they really come out with amazing realizations. For example, we were doing the Jaya Vijay story of them being cursed by the 4 sages. So many different nuances, so many going back and forth. Were the sages right, or were the Jaya Vijay right? Is anger good? Good anger versus bad anger, And Krishna as the transcendental mediator, how he completely, moved the hearts of the sages where they were so perplexed. Anyways, there's so many different things that came into the picture while we did this story. So in other words, Bhagavatam is like, a pit that has no bottom. It is endless. And every time we read the Bhagavatam, we get newer and newer meanings. And our children experience that. They actually, when you do Bhagavatam with them, they are really amazed. They're really amazed. They shake their head and say, wow, this is very deep. This is very deep. And they're so happy. It's like Krishna takes birth in their hearts. They found Krishna. So I just want to go to a slide about the resources, that we have to offer to all of you. And we see here, there's some nice, we've done 7 cantos, and there's a homeschooling book. So if anybody is interested, and this is like a curriculum book for Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like every chapter in every canto. There's a book for each canto. And this is child-friendly. This is for children between the ages of 10 to 18. And they can, parents can, and there's beautiful activities of all different types. Critical thinking activities, analogy activities, introspective activities, English activities, crossword puzzles, wonderful things to keep them engaged. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.